class. My name is Miss Shaw and today I will be talking about the French Revolution. My presentation will last approximately 5 minutes, and should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask at the end. The French Revolution started 1789 and finished 1794, although there were a number of events that happened prior to this that were catalysts towards this French Revolution. And also this French Revolution has many similarities with others, such as the American Revolution. And if we look at Britton Crane's 10 motives, the reasons behind why a French revolution would start, there are again many similarities. For me though, the most important motives of the French Revolution were economic, political and social. Economic in terms of the government's inability to look after its finances, political as in the absolute monarchy at the time, and social related to the class system. So let's start with economic. If we look at Crane's list, this is number 10, the government not being able to organise its finances correctly. We had luxury spending by Louis XVI and his wife Antoinette. They lived outside of Paris in the Palace of Versailles, so they were quite disconnected from what was happening in the rest of the country, which was poverty and starvation, with the majority of the working class and middle class who accounted for 97%. In fact, there's a famous saying, when they were starving and didn't have enough food, including bread, Antoinette said, "Give them cake." So it was this lavish spending of the royals and nobility, as well as large debt caused by war. My evidence comes from the 18th century, when much of Europe by 1770s had been colonised, and therefore this put growing pressure on the French economy, especially as by 1778 they were helping America against the Brits. This mismanagement of money left the country bankrupt. Louis' solution was to increase taxes. However, this was inadequate and unfair, as most of the nobles were exempt from these taxes, and this left the majority of the working class and middle class having to pay. In fact, at the time, there's a very famous poster that shows a French peasant giving a piggyback to the nobles and the clergy. The outcome of this was anger, and it was unsuccessful, as this class of people couldn't pay those taxes. So by 1787, Louis called together the Assembly of Nobles to address the French financial crisis. His idea was to tax the nobility who could actually pay, therefore bringing in money to the economy. However, Louis XVI was regarded as a weak man and who often backed down from his decision. So with the nobles' cry saying, "No, this isn't good, we're not going to pay," he backed down. As a result, this lost confidence in his ability to rule as a leader, and riots began. The French Revolution had begun. By 1789, he had lost control. Riots in the street meant that he gave power to Gilbert Montou, who took control of law and order. Now, he was a sympathiser of the revolution, so much so that he put the colour red into the flag of the French. My second motive is concerned with the political situation, the political establishment. If we look at Crane's point number 2, people felt restless and held down by unacceptable restrictions in society, religion and the government. For centuries, the country had been ruled by a regime of monarchy, aristocrats and the church. Louis XVI had absolute monarchy, so he had claimed to be the divine right to rule the country. Now, this led to oppression of the people, and with the Age of Enlightenment, for the first time, it questioned traditions and faith using science. Its emphasis was placed on equality, freedom of speech and thought. The king's right to rule for the first time was questioned, as was the church's wealth and their influence in running the country. The outcome was to form a new government, and by 1970 there was a government of three parties. The right were royalists who believed in a constitutional monarchy similar to Britain. You had the National Party in the middle, whose aim was to write a new constitution, and the left, the radicalists, who still wanted further change. My last point is social. Crane, point number 4, says people are beginning to think of themselves as belonging to a social class, and there is growing bitterness between this class. Now we know this because there's a three-estate system. The first, which made up of 1% of the clergy, the second was 2% of noblemen, and the largest was the third estate, who had the least power, and that was 97% of middle class professionals, farmers and skilled labour. And there was this huge divide between them. And they were starving, largely due to the bad winter, the worst they had in 90 years. There are similarities, as you can see, between this and the Greek Revolution, where you also had a rising middle class, one where the government couldn't afford to support them. There was unfair social class system as well, where they were paying back large amounts of money to the motherland. As a result of this rise of middle class, they had new ways of fighting and larger armies. Also in the French Revolution, the army couldn't control the riots because the generals were the people of higher class and majority of soldiers were of working class, middle class. So that's again another similarity. So yeah, there's many similarities. I hope you've enjoyed my speech, and should you have any questions, please feel free to ask now. Thank you.